This presentation is brought to you by Arizona State University's Julianne Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability and a generous investment by Julianne Wrigley.
What I want to present to you is the results of some work I've done looking at companies, here's the list right here, that have made voluntary reductions on greenhouse gas emissions absent a federal mandate. And the questions were simple. Why in the world are you doing this, and how are you doing it? And you'll see that they're mostly big blue chip companies, but I've found that the small to medium-sized companies find this report very valuable because these kinds of companies can make mistakes, learn from them, and the smaller companies can learn from those mistakes not to make the same mistakes themselves. And then we also did case studies of 6 companies, Duke Energy, at the time it was Synergy, and Duke merged with them, which means they bought them, Shell, Whirlpool, DuPont, Alcoa, and then the bottom right, Swiss Re. So let me go through these results, and then I'll wrap it up with the overall conclusion of how we think about this in a business school and how we think about this as a strategic issue. The first question we asked is, why are you doing this? Why are you making these reductions? It really broke out into 3 areas. Number 1, increase profits. Number 2, anticipate pending regulation. And number 3, improve reputation. And I really liked the way this dropped out because I hear a lot of companies saying, we're reducing greenhouse gas emissions because it's the right thing to do. And when you hear that, you should roll your eyes and say, okay, that's all well and good, but what's the business case? Because you have to imagine a senior executive going to his or her division managers and saying, we're going to start to anticipate climate regulation, we're going to start to think about this as a strategic issue. You better make the case on a business level, or they are not going to allow you to alter the profit and loss statements for their individual divisions. There has to be a business case. And it usually starts in the profit realm. In the profit realm, we found it fell into 4 categories. Number 1, uncertainty and energy costs. If there is one thing that companies hate more than the Kyoto Protocol, it's uncertainty. Insurance companies don't mind trends that go like this. They hate trends that go like this. And this last price spike we had on energy really caused a lot of companies a lot of concern. None of them expect the price of energy to stay down. As this recession starts to move beyond the energy price of energy, they anticipate it coming back up, and efforts to get a better control on that is something they see as enhancing profits. The second is growing interest within the investor sector. This chart right here is net sales of green funds in Europe, but we can also see it growing in terms of the investor capital worlds. There's a lot of interest. There's a fair question, at least before this recession, where there's a bit of a lull right now of whether there's too much money chasing too few opportunities. It's a fair question to ask, but the fact remains that there is profit potential out there. When Kleiner Perkins starts to invest their investment capital dollars in green tech firms, and I hate the word green tech, I don't like green jobs, I don't like green building, I don't like the word green thrown into this. Just a quick aside, my own editorial comment, but for many people, it's like waving a red flag in front of a bull. A lot of conservatives hear green, and they hear liberal, left-leaning cause. And instead, what we're thinking about is innovating in the face of a market shift. There are surveys that have been done where they ask business executives and consumers, do you want a green building? No. Do you want a smart building? Yes. Do you want a hyper-efficient building? Yes. Do you want a green building? Absolutely not. I don't want any of that liberal, left-leaning stuff. In the evangelical community, they don't call themselves environmentalists, those who are engaged in the issue of climate change. They are caring creationists. The phraseology, the terminology is very important for thinking this through. When you label something green tech or green jobs, it does become a little problematic. But be that as it may, my next point is green tech sector. There is movement in this area. There are opportunities to be had. And then finally, growing consumer demand. Consumers are paying attention to these issues. I got this from a gentleman at Whirlpool. In the 1980s, energy efficiency was number 10, 11, or 12 in consumer priorities. In the last 4 or 5 years, it's come up to number 3 behind cost and performance, and we believe these concerns will continue to grow. Now, Whirlpool is looking at the market shift to climate change as an opportunity. Whirlpool makes some of the most energy-efficient appliances on the market, and they think that this will create a competitive advantage if the price of energy goes up. You can go down to Lowe's right now. You can buy the baseline washer for $500. You can buy their top-of-the-line energy and water-efficient washer for $1,200. That's a $700 price differential, and most people balk. But most people don't run a net present value calculation. And in Michigan, where I live, with the average family of 4, you'll get that money back in 4.8 years. You'll get that $700 back in 4.8 years. If you go to Southern California, you'll get that money back in 1.2 years. I mean, this is a no-brainer. Consumers aren't picking up on this yet, but they're starting to, and they anticipate that if the price of energy goes up, those payback periods will get shorter. It will drive more consumers to their product. They're looking at it as a market opportunity. Consumer demand is there. The second area is pending government regulation. We asked the people in the survey, do you think regulation is coming? 100% said yes. No surprise. We asked when, and here's the numbers the way they worked out. This was before Obama was president. I would expect that if you did this survey today, those bars would move up, expecting regulation to come sooner. But even absent federal mandates, they are looking at this situation saying it's already in play. And in fact, it looks awfully reminiscent of what happened in the 1960s. In the 1960s, every state was starting to develop its own set of regulations. And industry came forward and said, enough. Don't give us 50 different standards, give us one. And out of that came the EPA. Take a look at what's happening on climate change right now. The U.S. Climate Action Partnership has formed. Other companies, other trade associations are coming forward saying, okay, we need some kind of regulation, we need some kind of certainty. Don't give us 50 different standards, give us one climate standard. So with the support and endorsement of industry, we're starting to see this push. I do think it's interesting that that doesn't come without detractors. 2 years ago when the U.S. Climate Action Partnership first, and this is a consortium of big blue chips, PG&E, GE, BP, they're all acronyms, I don't know why. But when they first called for regulation on greenhouse gas emissions, the Wall Street Journal ran an editorial. It was a very scathing editorial. It called them the Jolly Green Giants. And it said, don't believe a word they say. They don't care about the environment. They're just trying to create regulations that favor them and disadvantage their competitors. And I just thought, wow, stop the presses. The Wall Street Journal has suddenly realized that companies lobby Washington for regulations that give them a favorable place in the marketplace. That's what they're doing. That's what they're seeing coming. And they're trying to get a seat at the table to influence what that policy will be. But even without that, at least 40 different states in the country right now have some form of climate regulation, whether it's a carbon reduction goal, a climate registry, a renewable portfolio standard, ethanol standards. It's happening at the state level. The event that made that most clear for me was when Tony Blair came to the United States and he flew right over Washington and went straight to Sacramento to talk to Arnold Schwarzenegger about climate change. And even beyond the state level, mayors around the country are setting climate reduction goals. Universities are doing it. The issue is in play, and there's momentum building, and it's creating support for action at the federal level. And we'll see how it plays out, but it's already going. The final area is enhancing corporate reputation. After everything else happens, then there are some reputational benefits to be had by corporations. And even this has economic benefits. If you talk to Jeffrey Immelt, the CEO of GE, he freely admits that their Eco-Imagination program has done amazing things for their ability to recruit the best and brightest. You go back to 1997, John Brown, Sir John Brown, CEO of BP, first executive to acknowledge that climate change was real. The internal conversations that happened before that speech were driven around the idea that at that time, no one wanted to go work in the oil industry. It just wasn't an attractive industry. There was a survey of the American public in 1996, and 85% of the American public agreed with the statement, the oil industry has no right to exist. It's hard to recruit in that kind of an environment, and they looked at that shift as a way to draw people in. Patagonia, a company that really puts its values way out in front, the CEO loves to boast that for every opening at Patagonia, they have 3,000 applicants. They get to cherry pick, and that has tremendous economic benefits. And then, if you walk out the door, it's very hard to get back in. Retention rates are very high. And they're seeing that this connection between the values of the company and the recruitment pool is very important. So, why take action falling into these areas? In the end, and this isn't my words, this is the conference board saying businesses that ignore the debate over climate change do so at their peril. And companies that are trying to ignore that this is happening around them really will find themselves at the short end of the stick on this one.
This presentation is brought to you by Arizona State University's Julianne Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability for educational and non-commercial use only.